this content is for kids.
It's not for kids.
Isn't that what I said?
No, it's not for kids. If you are 13 years or younger, this is not for you. Do I have to kill somebody in order to actually make that point across?
No, man, you don't have to kill
Wait
no one.
a second.
Oh, no.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
He likes movies, we like movies. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. SeptumSin versus the world. I'd buy that for $1.
Greetings! You're watching SeptumSin vs. the World. I'm SeptumSin. Today, you're going to be treated to something unusual from me. Many pieces of this are extremely unusual. One, this is a book review. I don't recall ever doing a book review on this channel. Now, I have done them on the Blogspot channel before, but we're going to move on because my reading is slow. Of course, this is for an audiobook, which is easier for me to get to because when I read something and I want to understand it, I usually reread the page about 10 times. Once to get the basic gist, and then the other 9 times in order to get the details. Really, the 10th time is more just out of a paranoia that maybe I missed something. With the audiobook, I can just listen, I can hear it out. And that's a good thing. Also, this is something I own digitally. I don't own it physically in the slightest. Can you believe that? Well, as this is a physical media channel, this must make this book quite the knockout, isn't it? Well, not necessarily, but it is something of controversy. So, let's lay back, relax, and enjoy a good review. Couple disclaimers. If you are one of those people who feels that Woody Allen, the subject of today's review, is entirely spotless, every film is a masterpiece, every word he says is glorious. If you're one of those gems of society, those absolutists, I envy you, and I'm sure that he would as well, because he doesn't share your opinion in the slightest. But this is not the review for you. You know what you think of this. It's great, it's the best thing. Good to go. You've got your service on. Also, if you're another type of absolutist, Woody Allen is a pedophile, and there's nothing you can say to prove to me that he is not a pedophile, I believe. This book is trash. That's all you need. Bye-bye. Alright, now that we've taken care of those of you who are not the favorable audience, not the ideal, and certainly not the most interesting people, let's go on with our review. Apropos of nothing. So who is Woody Allen? This is an individual who is known for a lot of things. Scandal, to be sure, but also as a director of great movies, director of plays, a stand-up comedian, a musician, a philosopher of sorts, though not maybe the philosophy that most people would want to follow. Yet still, an interesting person for our age. This man has said very little of himself over the years, so when he decided to do an autobiography, it was something quite spectacular. Not only was it a chance for us to finally understand what he thinks about all these accusations against him, because he's largely remained silent on it, but in the same time, we get to learn a little bit more about a man who does not like talking about himself. Now, there are other sources of material in the physical realm if you want to know more about his movies and his feelings towards his movies. This is the documentary here. If you want to learn a little bit more about the man, that's how you go about it. So let's talk about the book. I picture myself, as I do therapy occasionally, just laying back in my chair, Mr. Allen on the couch, next to the Clorox. Maybe you feel more at home. And I say, tell me about your life. And every chapter is yet another session. This is the free-form material that makes up Apropos of Nothing. It simply is what it is. A rambling, stylized version of his life according to him. Now, if you're reading this, and I have read the first chapter or so until I found out that I could get the audiobook for free, and I was just as eager to go ahead and do that. I heard this in Woody Allen's voice. So, having the audiobook was unnecessary in that regard because, yeah, he narrates it, but that's alright. It's written so much as if it was right off verbatim that it sounds like the man himself just talking to you. Telling you a story about a life filled with ups, downs, and many, many anecdotes in between. Now, I originally wasn't going to buy this book. I'm interested, of course, in things like this, but to be honest, I don't read a lot. Or, I shouldn't say I don't read a lot. Let me rephrase that. I read very slowly, as in one big book a year. As I said before, I am not exactly the world's fastest reader. I am still about 3/4 of the way through Insomnia, and I'm hoping one day I will complete it. It is a task that's always in the running. Who knows, maybe another review. This one physical. So, I was in no like chomping at the bit nature for the book. It interested me. I was curious. I was going to read the articles that came out about it, just because it would be interesting to see how people felt. You know, wade through all the, it's terrible because of who wrote it, or it's excellent because of who wrote it. Instead, I'd like to know, what it was about. But then came the controversy. Ronan Farrow's crusade against free speech. And when that got pulled from the publishing company because of his success and censorship, I then decided, well, okay, so what's in this book that you don't want me to read? My curiosity got the better of me, and for the sheer spite of it, I went ahead and donated the money to purchase the book. And then I may eventually get this in physical as well, if I have the money to do so. And then I went ahead and got a hold of the audiobook, got my free trial of Audible, and there we go, $0. Because I wanted to hear it in the man's own words. This book spans the period from his childhood, through the marriages, through the scandal, all the way through adulthood, and all the time talking about the films he's created, the writing he did, the performances he made, and the people he has met along the way. So those of you who do frequent this site, many of you see the positive and the negative side, but you also know my format. I drone on and on about something, usually not to this level, but I figured that I owe this book a level of rambling equal to what the book presented. So bear with me on this. Still, I want to give this that fair shake. The positive, the negative, and my final thoughts. So let's talk about the positive. This is a fairly decently written book. It literally feels like Woody Allen is reading it to you when you are reading it. This, to me, is a huge benefit from this book. Not only that, but you get to hear about things, about relationships, about his thoughts that you've never got to witness before. You get to see a side of Mr. Allen that he himself has never actually presented. Little facts, little anecdotes that may have never come up before. And these things are very useful. One person once wrote in a review, "I did this because I was hoping for a detailed inside look at his movies and structure, and that's not what I got." No, it's not what you got. It wasn't even what was presented. If that's what he wanted to present, he would have said, the title of the book was My Films and All of the Making, or something more poetic, something that probably he would do a little bit better job spinning. Yet, it's not about that. This is about his life. The title says it all. Of course, the thing we're all here for is about the accusations, about the relationship with Sun Yi, about how he feels, how he's been dealing with it, and maybe a few more details. For some, maybe they're looking for some sort of admission that he did something. If that's what you're here for, go somewhere else. Because no, there's no admission. As a matter of fact, the man himself actually continues to throw around, these are the facts, this is what happened, this is the story. I've read up on the subject, and it gave me a few other sources to check out, and to this day, I have not had anywhere near enough to say, without a doubt, that he is guilty. So, until then, until such time, I probably will continue to consider him innocent, and once the proof, if it ever exists, comes out that he is guilty, then I will gladly denounce, just as the man himself would. Otherwise, it is interesting. You get to see insights about people, about stars, musicians, writers, that you probably wouldn't have seen before. For this, I think that it makes the book worth it. So, it also makes me think to myself, even though all those years ago, how is it that I just take everything at face value? Why do I become a part of the court of public opinion? And the court of public opinion is unfair because it does not care about evidence. So, and that's not just in this. This could be about, say, the current President of the United States. Though there is a lot of truth out there to back up some claims, sometimes when you get to hating somebody, you tend to just automatically assume. And that's fair. But it's unfair to those who you are accusing. Those of you who've tried. And for that, I want to make sure that I've given this the full benefit of the doubt. I felt like it came to a definitive end. It went from the past and moved to the present. And when I say present, I mean it covers all the films, including the making of the one he is working on as we speak. So, with that being said, there are negatives. The rambling nature is amusing. It has some fun jokes to it, but it is a rambling nature. Sometimes you have a hard time. You wish you could just stick right there. No, don't go. No. Oh. And then he's all the way over here. The tangential nature of the speaking makes me feel like I'm in a session with somebody and I'm constantly having to redirect. But instead of having the power to do so, I am unwittingly the victim who has to wait through until that anecdote goes. And though it is an amusing anecdote, to be sure, it still wanders away from the point. There are a couple of things that leave me a little bit with a raised eyebrow. For instance, his work with Louis C.K. and relationship with Polanski that he discusses a little bit. Many people, they go to the, well, he described women as sexy when they are younger than him, as the big negative. I do not. He's an 80-something-year-old man. If he wants to say somebody was sexy, he can say somebody was sexy. It doesn't bother me. Though, associating with people, and he even notes later that yes, they have pled guilt, so why continue to associate? That is probably the only major negative I would say. I'm sure that many of you who are fans who didn't listen to my disclaimer will start railing against me and say, "How dare you?" I told you. You can just put this as a don't listen anymore. I warned you. There are some negatives. But aside from the rambling, aside from a couple of minor nuances, this is a fun read. Now, I always thought about this. I said, how would I tackle this as a review? This is rare for me. I mean, this is at the 16-minute mark. I am not usually this lengthy in my reviews, but I wanted to be. So, how would I end this? Maybe with a little bit of psychoanalysis. Now, keep in mind, I think that Freud is a quack. I think his methods are barbaric and his testing to be unproven. Yet, I'm sure that the author himself would appreciate the analysis. The man is tangential, and many people feel like he is a very humble man, and in many ways he presents himself to be that way. He seems like the kind of person that would have a hard time saying anything bad about anybody, even when it comes to Mia Farrow and her allegations against him and the relentless crusade against the man. He is always going back and talking about how wonderful an actress she is, how amazing a person she can be. Yet, I don't believe that the man is as humble as he may present. And that's something interesting. If you listen to the speech, you can hear him say many things that make you feel like, yes, this is humble, but if you dissect it, if you look below the surface, he really does have quite the high opinion of himself and his work. He may not even understand that, but he does, deep down inside. So maybe there's hope after all. And why shouldn't he? I mean, he went on about the statue that they built at least twice during the book. I think it's in Spain that they built this statue. And again, do I think that he believes that it's not there? Yeah, he probably believes it's not necessary. But is he prideful about it? Of course he is. Anyone listening, hearing it mentioned even twice could tell you that. I think that this is a person who is kind of in the present. He does enjoy the past, but as far as his own work is concerned, much like, say, Miyazaki, he doesn't really believe in dwelling on a project. He has stated before that he has not seen any of his films because he doesn't believe that it's necessary anymore. Let's move on. Always creating, always the hard worker. That is Mr. Allen. So, there are a lot of finer beats here when it comes to a rating. Under normal circumstances, I'd just give this a 7 and that would be the end of it all. But there are a couple of things that push it through. One, this answers questions and gives us information that we've been wanting for the longest period of time. And that alone pushes this to an 8 because it becomes a must-read. But I am going to go even further. Because, in my opinion, with the push against it, it makes me mad. And because I'm mad, and because I'm a stubborn person, it goes to an 8.5, which I will round up to a 9. So, would I, at the end, recommend it to you? Of course, I gave it a 9. But let's talk about who you are. Again, if you're one of those people who ignored my disclaimer and wants to talk about how wonderful every Woody Allen film is and how flawless the man is, I don't think you would get a lot of enjoyment out of this. You're not going to get a lot of extra insight, and he's going to talk bad about himself and his films throughout this, and this is not something that you probably want to hear. You may get enjoyment out of it, but still, you won't be rating it a 9, that's for sure. If you're one of these people who looks at this and you say he's guilty, it doesn't matter what you see. He's an evil man. Of course, you're not going to want to read this. You're going to hate read this every time, and you're not going to get the information you want out of it. Avoid at all cost. If you're open-minded, if you think, this man is a tiny bit creepy, and I'm not sure one way or the other, I haven't looked into it, maybe this is the kind of thing that you'll enjoy. You might enjoy this. If you're that kind of person, much like myself, who does want a little bit of insight into the man and a little bit of enjoyment, maybe a chuckle or two, this is indeed the book for you. So, again, how would you get it? Of course, the digital ebook is the cheapest. The hardback is the most expensive at like 40 something, which is why I don't own it. And the audiobook, well, I got it for free on the Audible free trial. So if you haven't done your free trial of Audible, this is a good one to start with, because it's in the 20s there, and I'm not going to spend another $20 when I may spend $40 later on to get it in physical. So this has been my analysis of the book, Apropos of Nothing. I hope you've enjoyed. Click that subscribe button if you've enjoyed this. If you haven't, of course, I'm sorry about that, but you can hit that down button. Of course, if you liked it, I would appreciate a nice thumbs up. And of course, comments. None of the hate comments. If you're just going to lead with, how dare you criticize, or how dare you say something good, I'm going to just check that, and I'm just going to avoid that. So I'm not even going to read it. So good on you. But if you've got something insightful you want to share, please do. I want to know what you think. How do you feel about Woody Allen? What would you think about reading this book? I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.